Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for this invitation to your managers' conference. I think it's a novel format, which I don't think any other station or network does, and that I think it is a very good idea. So I have been, as I'm sure you can imagine, I've been going around the country this past few weeks, trying to see what exactly is the state of the lives of our citizens in the Philippines, trying to ask and inquire as to what are the issues that are paramount in people's minds. And I have found that, of course, we hear of many of these similar issues that we have heard before: the lack of jobs, the poverty rate, the educational system, our agriculture, all of these sectors, which certainly I would agree with need a great deal of work. However, despite the fact that we have some very good people with very good ideas on how to help solve these problems, I have found that the one remaining issue which has held us back is that of unity of our country. And the reason I say that is because I have noticed over the past few administrations that there has been a tendency for our leadership, our political leadership, to try to divide the populace along partisan lines. And that the divide and conquer idea has led to us polarizing and being divided and fractured into different groups. And as I said, despite the fact that we have some brilliant people in government, despite the fact that we have some very good ideas on how to proceed, how to make our country better, this lack of unity has held us back. And that is what my advocacy has been over the past few weeks, over the past few months. Trying to remind people that the Philippines can only depend on Filipinos, that only Filipinos will love the Philippines, and we must bring together all the energies, all the talent, all the industry, all of the new blood that we can to the problems of nation building. And that, I believe, is the refocus that we should have is back to nation building. I remember as a boy following not only my father, but being part of or attending these meetings and conferences, and just like a fly on the wall. And I would hear this phrase "nation building" all the time. And that what we are doing is to build a nation. We are putting together the different elements that are required for a vibrant and compassionate and progressive society. And that was what we would hear. That's what government work was. And in the past few years, we no longer hear that. What we hear all that we hear about is politics. What is going to happen in the next election? How does my party win the next election? How do I help my friend win the next election? It's no longer about what is good for the country, what is in the national interest. And I think if we return our thinking to that principle, that the fundamental duty of government is nation building, then the need for that unity will become clear. And if that is the case, then we will understand once again that we must be unified in our efforts to help our government, that we must be unified in our efforts to help the Philippines. And that is the kind of movement that we need to start. I even go so far as to say this upcoming campaign, this upcoming election, should it be successful, is just the first step, really, to bringing that unity together. So I hope that this campaign will be characterized by that desire for the unifying forces of the Philippines, so that we can once again be a country that is working for each other, with each other. And that way, that is the best, I think, the way forward. So that is essentially what my message has been. I am quite gratified to see that the message is well accepted. And I think that Filipinos, by our very nature, are not a are not a disruptive, do not have a disruptive nature. Filipinos, we tend to want to be together. We tend to want to come together to help each other and to bring out that, again, that aspect of our national character is something I think that we have to work for. And I hope that with these upcoming elections, as I said, that will be a first step. And I hope that we will start to go down that road, because it is the only road that I see for us to move forward. Thank you.
Hello, Senator. Janine De Bonito for RMN Manila.
How do you do? Good afternoon.
Yeah, so it's so nice to hear things about nation building. It evokes a lot of the past. And it might put you in a very unique situation. Would you be expounding the same message? Should you become vice president, and in all likelihood there will be another president, which is not of your party, and he or she makes you the spare tire. So how do you perceive your role to be should you win the next elections? Well, you're number 2 and very strong and going up. It seems like everybody's watching you now.
Well, I quite understand the people asking about that a vice president essentially walang, as it has been characterized, I think si Manong Ernie at ang nagsabi na ang mga vice walang ginagawa yan kundi mag-antay ng heart attack. There's something to that. But nakakaiba ang vice president sa atin dahil binoboto ka ng hiwalay. Hindi kagaya ng dati na block voting yung presidente at vice president. The fact that you receive your own mandate as vice president means that it is an office all to itself. It is an office that is that has its own identity. But because beyond the constitutional function, the only function the Constitution gives to a vice president is to be ready to take the place of a president. So talagang naman nandun. But even in that regard, I feel that I have been in every department. I have been in all parts of government. I've started in local government. I've moved to the legislature. I spent a long time again in local government. Back to the legislature now, and I'm hoping to return to the executive. 35 plus years of preparation will stand me in good stead. But because there is no clear definition of what the vice president's job is beyond waiting in the wings, then it is really up to the initiative of every president, of every vice president, to make the office what it is. And as you posited, there's a distinct possibility, even a likelihood, na hindi mo magiging kapartido yung presidente mo. And what would I say? I would say that the first thing after proclamation is that I will go to my president and I will say, I am here. I am here ready to be your partner. What would you like for me to do? Where do you think? I have my suggestions. I have my own thoughts. So that I think is still the advocacies that you have held all through the time in government. You can bring that to the fore. You can at the very least. Now, of course, if you are allowed by the president or given a brief or a job by the president, then you can expand on that. The Constitution again allows that the vice president be a member of the cabinet. So I think besides the any formal appointments to any positions, the advocacies that you can bring forward, you can be very effective as a vice president in working towards, hindi lang yung nagsasalita, kung hindi talagang nagtatrabaho ko. Halimbawa, if there are issues, I have been asked, what would you ask for? What will you ask for? And I have said dole. Despite the fact that I talk a great deal about local government, ang tingin ko, ang isa sa pinakamalaking problema sa atin ay yung employment. At kasama na rin dyan yung mga nagiging problema ng mga OFWs, which again is a critical part. It's a fifth, the remittances are already 1/5 of our economy. So that is That is what I have asked for. But, you know, I have been asked also before that, anong gagawin mo pag naging busy ka, pero hindi mo kapartido yung presidente mo? Eh ako, tignan natin. Sabi ko, walang problema. Kung si Miriam, ka-partner to si Miriam. Kung si Rudy Duterte, matali kong kaibigan na si Rudy Duterte ng 30 taon, labis pa. Pagka si Jojo Binay, he's a natural ally, he's from the north. Mar Rojas is my friend and the cousin of my wife. Grace is my sister. Do you know her?
Well, if any follow-up, Senator,
Yes,
you know,
of course.
if there's such a Duterte phenomenon, is the reason because of the real, sinasabi nilang cases sa lipunan natin. The other factor, the Marcos phenomenon that is again rising in the vice presidential races, precisely because of the legacy of what your father left. But in the Duterte Marcos presidency or vice presidency, whereby Senator Alan just left the challenge for another candidate to pick up whether you're in favor or not of the federalism. And then you expound about national unity and nation building. So how do you think would that correspond to their platform of government with federalism? Wouldn't that weaken the central government that you're expounding to repossess or to build up again?
I don't think the two things are mutually exclusive. To talk about unity and to try and spread around the centers of power, which is what you essentially do with as a federalism form. I don't think it's mutually exclusive for that. As a matter of fact, it makes for a good deal more stability. Dahil ang problema ko minsan, pag centralized masyadong gobyerno, pag magka-problema yung central government, nagugulo ang buong Pilipinas. Pero kung marami tayong centers of power, kahit na may problema sa isang lugar, hindi necessarily nagugulo lahat. So it makes for a much more stable political environment and much more stable. So that I think is a plus. In terms of federalism, I really see that there could be advantages to it. If we just look at the other countries that have had a federated system, a federal system for a long time, and you can see that it has been, they have gained some advantages over it. So why not, in my view? Because essentially, being again a great believer in local government, and a great believer in that government should be as close to the grassroots as possible. That is one way of doing that, because the actuations of government will be more local in the sense that halimbawa, gawin nating regional. Let's say we more or less we decide we do each federated state is the region. But then yung namumuno dun sa state na yun or sa region na yun ay nauunawaan nila, mas malapit sila sa tao, mas nauunawaan nila yung mga problema na dun sa area nila. Eh bawat area naman nakakaiba eh. May mga commonalities yan, pero bawat area iba. So it will be more responsive to people's needs. It will be more aware, the government, I mean, will be more aware of the situation in their localities. So that again will bring it closer to government. But as someone who again is very sensitive to issues in local government, the biggest obstacle I think I see is the transition. How do we move from what we have now to a federalized form of government? And ano mo, yung siguro pag titignan natin around the country, some of the strongest leaders are our governors. And it will be, I do not see how some of those governors who you all know will sasabihin mo, okay, dun sa probinsya mo, hindi na ikaw ang magde-decide. Yung regional government na magde-decide, kailangan sumailalim ka sa kanila. So how that will work, medyo mahirap ng konti. But you know, I think we certainly should at least study the possibility, try and look at the relative merits of what we have now. And that brings us to the next issue, which is a change in the Constitution. And I am also in agreement that besides federalism, besides the form of government, the electoral process, I think there are many things that need to be revisited also in the Constitution. So I think that it becomes an entire approach to retooling government. And I think it's time that we did that because many things have happened, many things have changed since 1987, and it would do as well to revisit some of the assumptions that were made back then.
What makes Senator Bongbong different from the rest of the vice presidentiables and the people will decide to vote for you? What is that character of yours? Number two, ano pa yung cabinet position ang gusto mong hawakan just in case nabigyan ka ng Pangulo?
Well, I believe, as I said earlier, as I mentioned earlier, that the fact that I have hands-on experience at different levels, in local government and in the national government and in the legislature, I think will be very useful because my experiences there are some that really illustrate or bring home precisely how the government really works and how people interact with the government at the grassroots level. Furthermore, ang mga problema ng Pilipinas ay yung mga problemang dikit sa sikmura. Kaya't ekonomiya ang pinag-uusapan, trabaho, presyo ng bilihin, yung mga bagay-bagay na yan. Siguro, my training, I think that most of my fellow candidates have backgrounds in law, have backgrounds in politics, but I have a background in economics, and that I think is going to be very important because we need to rationalize our economic system. We hear so much now about how our growth rate is very high, how a lot of money is coming into the Philippines, which I dispute, but never mind. That all of these things, all these good things are happening to the economy. And yet, as I go around, and I'm sure you have the same experience, that is not felt. Walang nakakaramdam. Sinasabi, daming kayamanan na pumapasok sa Pilipinas. We hear about the $24 billion that the OFWs are sending back home every year. And we see that the poverty rate hasn't changed, the literacy rate has not changed, the mortality rate in our hospitals has not changed, the prices have not changed, the savings rate has not changed, or even gotten worse. All of these things you can clearly see that there's no real effect of all this so-called growth and all of this so-called economic progress. So we really have to make a conscious effort for the distribution of wealth problem. We have clearly the distribution of wealth has not been attended to at all. The government has not taken any active role in distributing the wealth more equitably to the different demographics in our society. So that I think is something that I can contribute to. That kind of active government participation in bringing the resources of government of the country, even the part of what happens in the private sector, so that it is felt by ordinary Filipinos, and most importantly Filipinos that are in need, those who are disenfranchised, yung mga may sakit, yung mga matanda, yung mga bata, yung mga may disabilities, all of those who stand on the fringe, generally speaking, should be part of government planning. Hindi sila pinababayaan na bahala na lang sila to make their own way. As I mentioned, to answer your second question, I have said Dole. I would like Dole to because I believe that there is so much potential in our workforce, in the Filipino workforce, and that there's so much that we can still do. Kasi sa Dole, sa pag pinag-uusapan ng employment, kaunti na lang, we just do a little better, marami na tayong matutulungan. We have, for example, we have to start looking very clearly on how do we encourage, endorse, support the development of SMEs. Now, why? Because the SMEs, small to medium enterprises, should be the backbone of a stable economy. And even when you talk sociologically, the middle class is the important stabilizer for any societal structure, if you want to call it that. So those are, and that is the potential that Dole has. Now, like we have to divide the problem to two, basically local employment and again our OFWs, because they are such a large part already of our economy. I think here first of all, in the economy, we increase the number of to increase the number of jobs that are available to people. Government has to play, again, an extremely active role. Number one is the infrastructure development. The economy cannot grow if infrastructure is not continuously developing, because that's the only way for the economy to grow, is for the infrastructure to get better, more extensive, more efficient, more accessible. All of these things have to happen if we have to include. So I'm talking about Dole, but then we extend now into infrastructure, because it really is connected. Like, for example, we have to stop this business. I talk about political infrastructure. What is political infrastructure? It is infrastructure that is set up to help a political ally. Not because a road is needed, but because the mayor supported you in the last election, you will build the road. Whereas 2 kilometers down the road, where you really need a road, wala ang ginagawa kasi hindi natin kaalyado. We still have to stop that. We have to come back to the idea that we have business-driven infrastructure, and see what is it that the private sector needs that we can support, we in government can support, para magawa nila yung kanilang economic activity. In that way, by making more economic activity, more jobs, more opportunities for our people. That is one part of it. We have to realize that 90% of our employees are in the private sector. So it is the job of government to prepare the workforce for the appropriate jobs. You cannot train them to be something when there is no market for it. We must our non-diploma courses, even our diploma courses have to be geared towards what the market is demanding. And when I talk about the market, I talk about now not only the local labor market, but also abroad. We are now an entirely global economy, so we have to adjust accordingly. So that's something that needs to be attended to. Second, and then now if we go to the OFWs, I still believe that the end result that we should be going for is bringing most of them home. All of those who want to come home, give them opportunities to come home, and that's not a small wish, but we should be working in that direction. Certainly because most OFWs would rather be home, and so we have to give them that opportunity. There is a social cost to having close to 10 million more or less OFWs. There is a social cost to their families. There is a social cost to their communities. Furthermore, we are losing the advantage of the great Filipino workforce. We are well recognized as a fine workforce. Tayo masisipag ang Pilipino, matatalino, mababait, hindi magnanakaw. Kilala na tayo all over the world. Sayang naman, lahat ng trabaho na yun napupunta sa ibang lugar. So let's bring it back home. Furthermore, the protections. We are failing in our support and protection of our OFWs. We always call them the bagong bayani. And then may naglakbala, binubuksan yung kanilang binubuksan yung balikbayan box, yung mga hindi coordinated, hindi desidido, hindi buong loob ng gobyerno. Parang nagsasabi lang para magandang salita, pero hindi nila ginagawang totoo yung kanilang mga salita. So that's something that we can, so with just those few things, those little things, again, development of the SMEs, the training for our workforce, the infrastructure development, all of those things, the OFWs. For example, OFWs in 2000, the budget for the DFA in 2000, from 2010 to 2011 was halved, with the attendant reduction in support that our diplomats can give our nationals who are abroad, who are in need. And that's why we hear all of these horror stories. Walang nagawa, or napunta yung DFA dun sa problema yun, tapos na, pupugutan na ng ulo, ikukulong na, papatayin na, whatever it is. So we have to be more conscious, even as a purely practical matter. If you're talking about 1/5 of the economy, hindi na bale, forget the dignity or the compassion or not. You don't treat them as people, treat them as assets. Just as a practical matter, you must conserve that. You must conserve that. We have a very successful OFW employment all over the world, and we depend on it so greatly, then that we must attend to it and take care of it and make sure that we suddenly don't lose it. So all of these issues, I think, do not need any new programs, do not need any new policies, does not require any new law. Pero kung gawin natin, make government work better, be more attentive to our people, be more supportive, have a better idea of how to put the structures together so that there is a synergy that we will attain. And I think that immediately we will feel a difference in our economy, in the way we treat our employees. Then there are I always have to mention also the problem that all labor is now complaining about. What we have, the 555, the end of contract, all of these where the security of tenure is very much under threat. These are protections that are provided by law, but somehow this government has chosen not to implement them. We have to protect our people. We have to protect their jobs. So those are the areas. So as I said, because to recap, I think that this understanding, the training, the study that I've made on economics will help, and dollar, because again, that economic analysis, I think we can apply immediately without any great adjustments to our policies and to our laws.
Thank you very much. Let's move on and hear our next question from Attorney Rufil.
Good afternoon, Senator Bong. I'm Rufil Banyok of RMN Cebu. On the lighter side, sir, because I noticed that everybody has laughed when you have just been saying that Senator Grace is your sister. If I'm not mistaken, Mr. Senator, you were reportedly saying that you are willing to undergo a DNA test. If that way you could help Senator Grace to prove her status, being a natural-born Filipino citizen. Are you still standing by with that statement?
It was not a serious statement. But, I'm not hiding anything. There's nothing in my DNA which will... I don't think it will make any difference if you think about it. But it really came about because the media kept asking me. Paulit-ulit nila sila, totoo ba? Ito, sabi ko, ay naku, pambira naman, sige, kariring ko na. Sige, yeah, should be, no la, then everybody picked up on it. But, I think it's just part of the, alam mo naman pa tayo mga Pilipino, ang gagaling gumawa ng joke. Kapag may mga usapan na ganyan, lalo na pagka seryosong usapan, tungkol nga, kagaya ng tungkol nga kay Senator Grace. So, as I said, the question of the DNA is really just as an answer to I had hoped to put a stop to this question whether or not I would give my DNA, but it had the opposite effect. So again, it is not something that we have considered seriously, because really, as you can see, she has not asked for it. I don't think it will help her in any way, but she's my friend, and I can see that if there's a way that I can help her. I don't think the DNA test is going to do it, but her parents have been very close to my family, also to me. FPJ and Manay Su have been my friends for a long time, and they were very supportive of my father. They remain very close to my mother. So Manay Su is still very close to my mother. So yeah, that's how. Ganun ang pagtingin ko kay Grace.
One last question, Mr. Senator, for my end. Your TV and radio ads, you use different kind of people to speak, and you were the last person to say that tayo ang bukas. Some people see it as something abstract. Would you mind telling us what really the message that you want to convey in that advertisement?
That we should not be limited by what has happened to us in the past. That huwag tayong napipigilan sa naabutin ang ating mga pangarap. Dahil tayo na may nangyari sa atin noon, na disgrasya tayo, binalas tayo, may nangyari na parang napigilan tayo. Huwag tayong hihinto. Ipagpatuloy natin yung pagsisikap, aabutin din natin yan, aabutin din natin yan. And siguro sa ilalim niyan parang the only common thing of people that fail is they gave up. The only common thing with people that succeed is they did not give up. So let's not give up, let's succeed. That's the main thing.
Thank you, Attorney Rufil. Next.
Good afternoon, sir. Rabin Bangis of Environment Butuan. I think my question has already been asked in previous forum you have attended, but I just want to reiterate this this afternoon to get a clearer answer from you regarding sa martial law. Kasi marami pa kasi mga Pilipino na hindi pa naka-move on sa martial law. And I overheard a while ago that a palace official, I think, has started calling you the next dictator in the Philippines. Sir, ang tanong ko, naniniwala ba kayo na ang Marcos, ang tatay mo, ay nakakasala sa bayan? At bilang anak, kayo ba ay handang humingi ng tawad kung sa tingin niyo ay nakakasala yung tatay mo, sir?
Hindi ko pa ba sinagot yan? Ilang beses ko na sinagot yan. If you can, pag meron akong nasaktan, kung meron akong pagkakamali na napahirapan ng isang tao, handang-handa ako humingi ng kanilang paumanhin. I have to comment upon this. That's it. It's not a very complicated idea. I'm not going to. If it's clear that I hurt somebody by my actions or inaction, I would be not only apologize, but I would try to make it right. Ganun lang kasi.
Thank you. Next, we have from Kabutan.
Imbag nga Madam Senator Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. Senator, my first tatapin question ko, in a perspective view of a public servant, government official, what should be the voting population or the Filipino people should look dun sa ating government? Yung pong perspective view dun. And second one is, what is your definition of a government?
Wait, let me answer that already. I have a quick. You mean what should people look for in a leader or in government?
In a government
as a whole.
As a whole.
Oh, okay.
And second point is yung, ano po ang para sa inyo definition niyo po ng gobyerno? And the third one, naungkat na rin po natin po ang...
Definition of government?
Yes. What is a government? Because meron pong presidential naman siya na nag-define kung ano ba ang kanyang pananaw, ano ba ang pananaw niya sa isang gobyerno. And sa inyo pong pananaw kayo po, ano po ang definition niyo po in a government? It's a government po. And
Well, I'm assuming what you're asking is what's the definition of a good government?
Yes.
Would you care to know about what's a bad government?
yes, Senator.
I think we pretty much know what
Okay.
that is already.
And the third one is yung pong
First of all, the government is only the nature of any administration. The governments are different because of the different stuff. But the nature of any administration is dependent on the nature of the leadership, the political leadership. And what is needed and what has been lacking over the past years is leadership. Wala tayong nakikitang leadership. Walang nagsasabit sa atin, eto ang pupuntahan natin. Eto ang pinakamaganda para sa bansa. Eto ang plano ko. Eto natin gagawin. Samahan ninyo ako. At sabay-sabay tayo, abutin natin itong magandang kinabukasan nito. This is, I have a vision. I have a plan to achieve that vision. I intend to motivate all the sectors of society to join me in working towards that dream that we have. Where is the Philippines in 5 years? Where is it in 10 years? Where is it in 15, 20, 30 years? That's the kind of leadership and vision that government must provide. Now, of course, the bureaucracy is there to implement that vision, to implement that plan na pinagkaisahan ng pamahalaan. So there are two elements to government. There's the social side, wherein again the disenfranchised, the mainstream of the mainstream of our society must be protected, must be our general lives must be lived within the law, that we have all the services that are being provided by government. And the other side is again to provide that leadership na kung saan tayo patungo. Tama ba itong tinutungo natin o mali itong nagawa natin, lipat tayo at gawin natin yung mas maganda. Yeah, that is what leadership means, and that is what I think that government needs to provide. Otherwise, walang nangyayari. Walang nagbabago, walang natatayo, walang programa, walang parang pang-araw, everyday, kung ano yung mga naging problema, sasagutin yung problema. Pero walang plano na, in 6 months, kailangan tapos na natin ito. O in 1 year, kailangan nandito na tayo. At ito, ikaw, sino-sino ang gagawa. Ito yung gagawin, ito trabaho mo, ikaw ang trabaho mo, ito ang trabaho mo, ganito. And that's the kind of organization that kaya tayo may bureaucracy. Para nandyan yung mga tauhan mo para gagawin ang trabaho na kailangan mo. But the bureaucracy will only follow a leader. And that leader has to be our political leadership must exhibit that kind of leadership. And leadership is not only saying that you have a plan. Leadership is also being able to galvanize all the sectors of society to join you in your cause, to join you in your effort, to join you in the work to progress the country forward. Yun ang pangangailangan siguro natin.
Last question, Senator. Na-harvest ako, nakikita na po ngayon ng Pilipinas, yung sinabi po ng inyong father, your late father, President Marcos, ang problema sa kuryente. Yung question ko is, do you think na dapat talagang i-pursue itong nuclear power plant na talagang kinalimutan na i-push through ng ating mga nakaraang administrasyon?
Oh, well, I still believe that the Bataan Nuclear Power Plant was a good idea. And the reason that I can say that, if you, the design that they used, that Westinghouse used for the Bataan Nuclear Power Plant, was used also in Korea. And in Korea, it has been so successful that they put up pang-anim na yata ang tinatayo nila, pang-lima, pang-anim na ang tinatayo. Ironically, ang tawag doon yung Cory 1, Cory 2, Cory 3. That's what it's called. Oh, Korea is something, yung research din yun. May totoo yan. I thought I smiled when I read it. But the point is, we could have had that already. Pero na-politika yan noong 1986. Ginawang touchstone na sinabi na lahat ng everything that was wrong is embodied in the nuclear power plant. Now, ngayon, kung babalikan natin, I don't know kung technically pwede pa. Unang-una, yung fuel na ipagbili na. During the Ramos administration, the nuclear fuel was sold for I don't know how much, but ipagbili na. So wala na tayong nuclear fuel. Pangalawa, I have talked to some technicians. Sinasabi nila, sabi ko, hypothetically, pwede pa bang patakbuhin yan? Kanila, yeah, pwede. You have to buy a fuel again. We will put it all together again. Kung punta mong Bataan Nuclear Power Plant, para umaandar eh. It's clean, it's well maintained, but sabi niya, marami tayong kailangan gawin. There have been so many new technologies since 1985 na kung isasama natin lahat ng mga bagong teknolohiya, magtayo na lang tayo ng bago. Which is, well, nagbabayad pa naman tayo. So it really was a lost opportunity. But those are the vagaries of politics, and that's what happened. So I think that there are other, nung panahon na tinayo yan, hindi natin masyadong napapag-usapan ng mga alternative energies, the new technologies, kahit sa coal, yung coal, maduming ngayon, hindi na, there is already possibility for coal burning, for oil burning, that's much better than it used to be. So I think that put it this way, as a choice, tignan natin ang nuclear power. Dahil kung titignan natin ang ibang bansa, lahat naman sila ay talagang umaasa sa nuclear power. France, for example, has like something like 60% of their power comes from nuclear power. The United States, despite the 3 Mile Island, but tuloy pa rin ang kanilang development. The classic one is the Japan. Nagka-problema talaga sila because pinasok sila ng tsunami. Pero after several years, binabalikan na naman nila. Because I think in terms, there is a way, I think the technologies are available to run nuclear power plants without too much problem. The United States Navy has been running nuclear plants on its ships for how many years now? And you haven't heard that there has been a problem. So it's just up to us to do it properly. But I think it should be regarded as a viable option. But we still have to look, we have to be imaginative. We have to look at all possible sources of power. So we should look into oil-fired, we should look into coal-fired, alternative energies, all the possibilities. Because kung titignan ninyo ang economic development, it's very closely tied in. The main driver is the availability, reliability, and cost of power. Kung hindi gumaganda yun, hindi magde-develop ang industrial side ng ekonomiya mo. That's why right now, one of the weakest areas of our economy is manufacturing. Wala na tayong manufacturing ngayon. Nobody wants to bring plants here. Bakit? Mahal ang kuryente, sinisira ang makinarya dahil unreliable, nagba-brown out, all of those things. So that's why it is such a key element in economic development.
Thank you very much.
Despite the efforts of both the government and the non-government organizations and with all the international help, more people of Eastern Visayas, especially those ravaged by Typhoon Yolanda, still cry foul. And undeniably also, hindi pa po tapos ang rehabilitation programs. What do you think is the problem why after more than 2 years, hindi pa rin po na patapos-tapos ang issue? And should you be put in place into government for vice presidency, would it be one of your priorities to bring justice to this a little felt injustice to the people of that region? Thank you.
It is a priority. Bringing the rehabilitation, bring the reconstruction, or even as you refer to it, justice to those who are ravaged by Yolanda has been a priority since it happened. For mine, since it happened, it will continue to be a priority until we find we are the same. The people that we lost and the damage that they suffered, these are our relatives, these are our friends. These are the people we grew up with. Kaya hindi mo man matatanggal na it is something beyond the understanding of how great the devastation was. There is also that emotional aspect to it, that kawawa naman itong mga mahal ko sa buhay, hindi na natulungan. So that remains always close to my heart. It's very disappointing that, for example, in Tacloban, in the housing, only 10% of the housing has been built. That is what? Nag-celebrate na tayo ng 2013, yung nag-celebrate na tayo ng pangalawang taon, last November. 2 years na, 10% pa lang ng mga bahay ang tinayo. And that's by the government's own report. Then there are the other elements. At hindi natin hanggang ngayon, hindi pa tayo sinabihan kung saan napunta ang malalaking pera na binigay ng mga international aid agencies. We are still finding yung 350 bags na linibing na nahanap natin na nakamarka na DSWD. We found it last November. Bulok na yung bigas, di na magamit. At linibing yun. What happened there? 350 bags, alam niyo ba kung ano papakainin mo for 350 bags? Tinapon lang nila. Why does these things happen? There are also all the other horror stories. I was in Tacloban. Day 6 after it happened, day 6 or 7 after it happened. And talagang hindi namin nakita yung mga pagpasok ng hindi maayos ang organization. Sa palagay ko, na yung mga yung nababanggit, they always talk about the department of that we should have a department solely for calamities, to deal with calamities. We talk about man-made, we talk about natural calamities, man-made calamities. By man-made calamities, I'm talking about something like the Zamboanga uprising. So, palagay ko, panahon na natin, maybe not a department, but if you take a leaf out of the Americans book, meron sila yung FEMA. Yung FEMA, naka-ready lagi yan. Pag may parating na bagyo, mag-i-in place na sila ng gamit, mag-ready na sila, they wait. Pag dumaan yung bagyo, like what happened in the East Coast in the past few days, pasok sila kaagad, clean up, rehab. Kung may kailangan ng relief goods, yun ang kanilang ginagawa. Maybe dahil sinasabi sa atin na yung mga extreme weather mukhang mapapadalas na mangyayari. Yung malalaking bagyo kagaya ng Yolanda. Unfortunately, we are told that that's going to be more common. I hope not, but that's what we should prepare for. So maybe it's time to think about that. But unfortunately, we have not had a very cooperative government when it comes to Yolanda. And I can say this firsthand. We do not know what is happening. When Yolanda struck, November 8th, it so happened that we were in the middle of budget deliberations. Congressman Martin Romualdez and I jointly put in an additional 160 billion pesos for disaster relief. And the disaster relief was for Zamboanga, for Bohol, and for Yolanda areas. I don't know what happened to that money. I don't know where it went. I don't know what they did with it. Even then Secretary Ping Lacson, medyo na-frustrate din. Kasi marami siyang magandang plano, wala naman siyang pinagagawa sa kanya. So I don't understand what's taking so long. And I cannot get an explanation out of anyone in the government as to why it's taking so long. What is the real reason? I shudder to think that it could be politics. But I sincerely hope not. Because ang pinag-usapan dito, hindi politika, hindi kaliksyon. Ang pinag-usapan dito, buhay ng mga tao. And thousands and thousands and thousands of people. Just the fact that they stopped the count of the dead at 6,500 seems to indicate to me what happened to the 4,000, that it's actually 10,500. So those 4,000 deaths don't matter. That whole attitude is disturbing. And that is not, hindi walang maitutulong yung ganyang klaseng pag-iisip. So, I wish I could give you a better answer, but I have been confronted when I ask these questions. I've been confronted by a blank wall. I have not received any definitive answers. I have not even received any kind of explanation why ang tagal-tagal na wala pang nangyayari. But ang dami-daming pondo nasa napunta, lahat yan ay wala pang magandang matinong sagot na natanggap pagkakinagpalagay.
Just a follow-up question, sir, because time is not within the luxury of these people and victims, because there had been a follow-up series of unfortunate events with these people, derailed families living in these makeshift homes, where prostitution is now in it, and drugs have been flooding that area. Those orphan kids were not sent to school. The government is not looking on them at that. So these have been chain reactions towards the delayed process of rehabilitation given supposed to be first-hand to these people.
Unnecessary tragedy. Kung meron lang talaga mas maraming ginawa ang gobyerno, kaya naman gawin. Kaya hindi ko lang maintindihan kung bakit hindi pa. Hanggang ngayon, hindi pa natin talaga nakikita ang kanilang ginagawa. If you look at the several agencies of government, hindi sila nagko-coordinate. Merong area, meron akong pinuntahan nung last time ko sa Tacloban, kausap ko yung isang barangay chairman. Sabi nila, yung yung sinasabing tulong na ibibigay sa bawat pamilya, hindi pa rin natatanggap. Sabi ko, bakit? Anong sabi nila? Sabi, dahil nandito kami sa danger area. Ayaw nilang magbigay ng tulong kasi gusto nila kaming palipatin. Pero wala kaming paglilipatan. So, parang hindi pa tapos yung bahay na lilipatan namin. O may bahay na pero walang tubig, walang kuryente, walang kalsada, walang sasakyan, etc. etc. Nagtayo lang ng bahay. So, yung ganyang klaseng parang hindi siniseryoso talaga na gusto tumulong. Parang masabi lang na nagtayo kami ng bahay, okay na, tama na, huwag na kayo mahulog. Pero yung mga ganyang klaseng mga pangyayari, I'm sure you know many other situations that are unnecessary na hindi naman dapat na mangyari pa. Pero bakit nila pinababayaan na mangyari? Nakakaawa talaga ang mga naging victim. Thank you very much again for this opportunity. I cannot believe that's been an hour. Ang bilis ng isang oras sa inyo. Well, I thank you for this opportunity to speak with the managers and we covered a great deal of subjects from the economy to infrastructure to genealogy. Yolanda, talagang malawak ang napag-usapan natin. And I'm very happy that I had this opportunity to, especially before all of the clutter, all of the craziness that's going to happen during the campaign period. So with that, I hope that I was able to clarify some of my positions, some of my thoughts, some of my ideas. And I'm sure that in the coming months we will be talking again and we can pursue that discussion. And I'm happy that at least before all the official campaign period began, I've been given a chance to be with you here to talk about all of these things. So thank you again. And, good evening.